try not to care. Okay, we have a saying in this band: if it gets any better, it's going to get worse. Mantra. So yes, as far as guitar stuff, when it comes to like rhythm guitar, I mean, fireworks, dude, I'm not your guy at all.
Well, well, first of all, rhythm guitar is underrated in this world. Some of the great, it's not easy. And you think of Jimmy Vaughn or you think of Nancy Wilson, and rhythm guitar is an important tool. But also, I'd say on that solo, Medicine at Midnight, I thought it sounded like Gary Clark Jr. was guesting or something. I mean, it was like really like it was blues. I mean, hey, look, I got to go back in time. David Fallis, who is one of our he's like the Dave Grohl of the investigative journalism world. He's the head of our investigative unit at the Washington Post. But it turns out he used to run a magazine called Dry Heave, and he received a letter from this man, Dave Grohl. I actually X'd out your thing because I didn't get a chance to ask you. I was a little nervous that might be your mom's address, and then all these people would come over. But you sent this letter to him in 1985 looking for coverage, and then you received this coverage, this photo of the band, right?
Yeah.
Who's that band? Who are these people?
That was my band, Mission Impossible. And that's from a show that we played in Richmond, Virginia in 1985. That was the first band I ever played drums in. I didn't even know how to set up that drum set. It was actually the bass player's drum set. And so I'd say, like, could you set this up so I could play it? Like, I couldn't put a hi-hat stand together. I had no clue. But yeah, that was my band, Mission Impossible.
And your handwriting is, I can't really scroll down to it because Instagram stinks, but it's really questionable. But as you see, Dave Fallis lived in Oklahoma, and he took a lot of photos of Husker Du that ended up in that box set that they put out recently. Cool. And he really is, he's the Dave Grohl of investigative reporting, I'd say.
Well, he's really, would this be considered a cold case file, what we're doing right now? I'd imagine that, like,
oh yeah.
There's got to be there's some of my DNA on that letter, I suppose. Yeah, somewhere.
Absolutely. Like, little Dave Grohl babies are running all over Virginia right now. Whoa, actually, they're your children. Hey, is that your daughter Violet singing on Making a Fire and all the Look, I've got to be honest. I like records. See what I mean? Like records. You seen one of these things? So I like.
Oh, that's one of my favorite records of all time. Oh.
You know, I should have done. I'm going to tell you something, and we're not going to spend much time on this because I don't want to waste the Washington Post's time. But Clint Conley, you know who he is, right? He was the bassist and singer in Mission of Burma.
Oh, okay, right, okay.
And when we started this, he is a TV producer now in like Boston, and he came to the barn that I'm in right now, and he was just filming me a little bit because he's going to do a little feature. They're going to have a little feature on it. But Clint Conley, I mean, Mission of Burma, who I think opened up for you guys once in Boston, if I have it right.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that. So that band that you showed a picture of, Mission Impossible, I mean, we were just like a hardcore punk rock band. Everything was 10,000 per hour. We were yelling about our parents and Reagan or whatever we were talking about. And then we started, that band split, and I started a band with the bass player, Dave Smith of Mission Impossible. We joined up with this guy, Ruben Radding, whose father played in like the National Symphony Orchestra. And Ruben was like, he wasn't so much a hardcore punk rock kid, but he was more into like New York and a little bit of the post-punk and stuff like that. So we started to, through him, I discovered Mission of Burma and television. And so we started a band called Dane Bramage. And Dane Bramage was like, it was the two-headed love baby of crazy hardcore punk rock and television and Mission of Burma. And to this day, that album, I love Mission of Burma so much. And I mean, had Mission of Burma like come out around the same time as like, you know, The Strokes, oh my God, they would be playing Wembley Stadium. You know, they were so far ahead of their time. I love them so much.
So as you know, so I have done some investigating work on you. As you can see from the photos, this is not Pitchfork. This is the Washington Post. We send our best team out before we do an interview. But I want to ask you a few musical questions. You're in this group, Nirvana. And Nirvana, they put out a bunch of records. They did well. But I'm intrigued because I was trying to think, I was doing a brain twister, trying to think if there's another example of a fella who's in a band where he plays drums or bass or whatever. And then he goes into another band later, and that band is arguably more popular, bigger, whatever, and he's writing the songs and singing them. I couldn't really World Party? No, I don't think so. And what I'm curious about is there a point late in Nirvana before you obviously make the Foo Fighters record where you're thinking, you know what, I've got all these songs, I'm like George Harrison here, how do I get them out? And was there ever an understanding or expectation or conversation that, hey, maybe I could put a few on these records, or no?
Well, it all goes back to that famous joke. What was the last thing the drummer said before he was kicked out of the band? Hey guys, I got a couple songs I think we should play. You know, like that is, you know, it's just forbidden, you know, for whatever reason. But I mean, listen, you know, when you're in a band with someone who's arguably the best songwriter of that generation, yeah, you don't really want to confuse the process with some Yellow Submarine. You know what I mean? Like, let's just sort of, and it was not only an honor, but an incredible pleasure to play drums in Nirvana, because those songs, all they required was like disco drums on crack, you know, just like, it's all you needed to do was make the biggest, most simple noise you could to push those songs through the speakers, and that was it. So, but no, I mean, you know, in starting the Foo Fighters, I really didn't have like a plan, and I'd been recording songs on my own, kind of as we talked about when we first started the interview, in a basement 8-track studio, where I'd have these ideas and I would record them really quickly, put a drum track down, do a bass track, a couple guitars, do a vocal, put it on a cassette, and then that was it. And I was sort of nervous or embarrassed, too shy to play them for other people. At one point, a friend of mine in Washington, D.C., a girl named Jenny Toomey, there was a label called Simple Machine, or what was the name of the label? Shoot, I can't remember. But they were releasing a box set of vinyl singles called Simple Machines. And she had heard one of these songs I did and said, hey, do you want to put a song out on this compilation? I was like, yeah, sure. So I think that was like my first official release, but I mean, you know, it's on a box set of singles from a punk rock label. They maybe made 500 of them. I don't know. So it wasn't like, you know, I didn't have like crazy career aspiration. It was just like, yeah, that'll be kind of cool. And then I go back and play drums in Nirvana, and then record some stuff myself and go back and play with Nirvana. But after Nirvana was over, I just didn't know what to do. I mean, I was like, you know, like my world was turned upside down, and I was kind of traumatized. It fucked me up, you know. And then I felt really lost. And then I thought, whoa, you know, I've been playing music since I was a child, and it saved my life my entire life. So maybe they'll do the same now. So that's when I went in to record what became the first record. But, you know, before that, there wasn't really, it was fun. I mean, it still is fun, but like back then it was really just, you know, it was just like a silly experiment. And it's still a silly experiment in a lot of ways.
But Dave, you know, first of all, I don't want you to slag on Yellow Submarine. It's an excellent song. It might be about a submarine, but you know, the thing is, it's interesting to me in all seriousness, because you clearly are. You'll brush it off, but you're an artist, and you have the ability to do things other people can't do with songwriting and singing and melody. I mean, if people haven't heard it, this song, Waiting on a War, I feel this way about a few people. You know, Stephen Malkmus, a guy from Pavement. Every once in a while, I'll hear him do a song, and I'll go, God, only he can do that. And Waiting on a War is a song, something about the melody and the way it hits, it's perfect to you. But I just wonder, but if Nirvana continues on and on and on, it sounds like you never had a plan to come out and make my own music on your own. I mean, it's really kind of fascinating to me to think about.
Well, I to be honest, it's like, other than just, you know, some sort of like vanity project pressure release, why? Like, why would I, you know, I was in Nirvana, It was like I got to
Fair
be
enough.
the
Fair enough.
like I really didn't. But you know, one of the things that inspired me to do it, and I don't know, I know that you talked to Stuart Copeland.
Yes.
I saw that one. Okay, so that was great. Um, you know, he did a side project called Clark Kent, right? Do you remember
Yeah.
that? Right.
Wait.
I
Stay
know
there.
you
Wait,
have it.
for God's
It's a
sake.
lime green cover. I know. I had it
Yeah.
too.
There it is.
There you go. So, um, someone played me that record before telling me who it was. And I was like, oh my God, this is cool. It kind of sounds like the Police, sort of. They're like, it's Stuart Copeland. I'm like, but it doesn't say Stuart Copeland on the record, you know, it just said Clark Kent. And I thought, wow, how cool that dude gets to be in the Police, but he's also doing this other really cool thing. And that really was a big part of the inspiration behind the Foo Fighters. It's why I wasn't going to call it like Dave Grohl and the other dude, whatever. It was like, I'm going to call it Foo Fighters so people imagine that it's a group. I thought like, oh, I'll pluralize it. People are going to think it's like the Ramones, you know. But that record was the one thing that really did inspire me. I was like, oh, well, Stuart Copeland did it, so maybe I can too, and just not tell anybody. And so then when they listen to it, they think like, oh, they have the same reaction I had. Like, this sounds kind of cool. Who is it? And then you find out, and it, you know, makes you feel like you're in on the secret.
I like that. I also remember around the mid '90s. I remember the guy from the Replacements, Chris Mars, who I don't think I'd ever heard him sing a song. He put out like 2 or 3 solo records where he played all the instruments. There's something about that, which is the other thing I want to ask you, which is you clearly love playing with others and being in a band. And then I think of Paul McCartney, who just put out this record where he plays every instrument. I think of Stevie Wonder. Is there ever an urge to go back and do just a record on your own, playing everything?
You know, I sort of did that a few years ago where I had this idea. I mean, I've done it so many times. I prefer to record with other people because it's a bit more rewarding. There's no, I mean, when you do it by yourself, there are rarely surprises. You know, it's like it's all coming kind of from the same place and whatever. But I thought, okay, I want to record something by myself. So instead of just recording a song, I'll write and record a 23-minute long instrumental where I play 7 different instruments. And the idea is that, like I said, I go to the drum, it's called Play. We made vinyl and stuff like that. But I was like, oh, this will be cool. I'll sit down at a drum set and I'll play for 23 minutes without stopping, right? Like no like dropping in and out with the take. It's like you don't stop. Then I'll go and I'll sit down with the bass and I'll do the bass track and I won't stop. I have to go through the whole thing 23 minutes without making a mistake. And then I'll put down guitars. Then I'm going to put on keyboard. And I did it. And to me, it was more about like, I mean, listen, it's not the next single, but I thought like, okay, this is like some sort of cool, like an exercise. This is going to be really fun to see if I can actually do it. I mean, it's easy to go in and make like a 3.5-minute long, like bubblegum commercial, but to do like some crazy 5 or 6 part suite, which is a 23-minute long, like prog instrumental and play all the instruments. And I filmed it and we did a composite where we put, it's basically a room full of me. It's everyone's worst nightmare. It's more than one me. But yeah, so sometimes, and that got it out of my system. I was like, fuck that. Bring me the Foo Fighters. This sucks.
I like that. I do. I remember that Paul McCartney video for Coming Up where he played all the instruments and he had all
Dude,
the...
have you ever seen the Karen Carpenter one?
No.
It was on a television show where she did a drum solo because Karen Carpenter was a drummer. She did a drum solo where there's like 4 or 5 different Karen Carpenters playing all at the same time. You have to search it. It'll blow your mind. It'll totally blow your mind.
I will look for that. Hey, a kid named James Gore, who is in a band with my son, he's 14. He had a few questions. Can I ask you these questions?
Absolutely.
How many drum sets did you destroy while you were in Nirvana? He's a drummer.
I mean, listen, I rarely destroyed them. I threw them around sometimes, but when I first joined the band, I was playing the same drum set I had when I was in Scream. You know, it was like this old yellow Tama drum set. And just as Nevermind was coming out, we were playing clubs and playing small venues. You know, we weren't like huge yet. And Kurt was just like chopping at my drums every night, just killing until there were holes in my drums. And at every show, I would say to our tour manager, I'd say, dude, can I please get a, I mean, we're selling out all of these clubs. Can I get a drum set? He's like, wait, one more week. And then more holes in the drums. And then I'm like, please. He's like, one more week, more holes in the drum. And then we were playing the Metro in Chicago. This is 1991, fall of 1991. And I said to Kurt before the show, I was like, I go, dude, Monty has been telling me that I can get a new drum set for the last like 3 weeks. He's never going to. So tonight, can we please destroy, like splinter it so there's nothing left? And Kurt was like, yeah, sure. Okay. So we end the show. And we basically kind of told the audience, like, we're going to be here for a couple minutes. You can watch if you want. And we just like completely obliterated the drum set. And then I'm like, all right, looks like I'm going to get a new drum set. And the next day was like a Sunday and all the music stores were closed. So I had to borrow the drummer of Urge Overkill's drum set for the next like week.
Oh, I love that. Or you just joined the Stray Cats, right? I mean, you know, one of the two.
Yeah, why not?
You know, I walked through the rock. There was like a rock and roll show at the Met. I walked through it with Steve Miller, and we got to the picture of I think it was like of Jimi Hendrix, and he was lighting his guitar on fire. And I said, like, you were there, right? And he's like, yeah, I was there. It was the stupidest effing thing I've ever seen. Why would you light a guitar on fire? It's like, well,
I mean, listen, I sort of felt the same. Like, listen, in the bands I'd been in before, nobody smashed the instruments because we didn't have any money. Like we did, like
right,
if you smashed something, you were fucked the next day. Then you just start borrowing things from other people. You're like, I'm sorry, is there any way I could borrow everything you have on stage? Because we destroyed it last night. So it wasn't until Nirvana that I, you know, and I think since Nirvana, I've probably smashed a guitar once out of frustration that it just didn't work for a month, you know, so.
Do you miss I guess you were offered the opportunity to be the drummer in Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Am I right?
Yeah, I'm really glad I didn't do it. Not because it wouldn't have been fun, but they got Steve Ferrone, like one of the great from the Average White Band, like one of the greatest drummers of all time. I don't think I really fit to be the drummer of Tom Petty's band. And of course, you know, I was such a huge fan, and the 2 weeks that we played with each other, they made me feel like I was in the band. I was a kid. I think I was 24, 25 years old. They were nothing but lovely and generous and fun. And Tom was so cool, dude. He was the coolest guy in the world.
But after that, was there anybody else? What other band? It said you were offered the job in other bands. Are there a couple others you can mention so we can think about this?
I feel like someone called and said, hey, Danzig's looking for a drummer. I was like, okay.
Interesting.
What were some other ones? I feel like I talked to Dave Perner from Soul Asylum, and he was like, I know this is a weird time, but if you want to jam, like, let's jam. And I was like, well, I'm not sure. I wasn't really feeling it yet. I mean, to be honest, like, I just didn't want to sit behind a drum set. That was it. It was, I mean, I was kind of like traumatized. I was like, if I sit down at this drum set, all I'm going to think about is Nirvana. And I kind of had to work past that, you know, so much that I decided, well, I'll do the one thing that I'm not good at, singing.
Dave, it's interesting. You know, I talked to John Fogerty at one point, and he would never play any of his Creedence songs because he had such a horrible feeling about Creedence and business stuff. And it's Nirvana. You know, I know at a certain point, all you did was get asked about Nirvana. And then I saw this performance you did where your daughter was Violet sang Heart-Shaped Box, and it was beautiful. And I wonder, look, when I hear the song Gloria by Laurie Branigan, I think about being in 6th grade and not being able to get the girl to dance with me. Have you, when you listen, I'm sorry, it's a little bit of a diverging path, but when you listen, when you play Nirvana now, when you play a song like that, has it changed the way you feel inside about the song? Does it bring you back to a moment? Tell me about that, because you were very into that performance, but it was just so peaceful with all those people around.
Yeah. Well, we've only really done that a few times. And, I don't like go into my rehearsal space and play Smells Like Teen Spirit by myself, There've only been a few times where Chris and Pat and I have played those songs together. And when we do, it's a hard it's hard to define what it feels like, because you're not only connected to the song, but you're connected to the people as you're playing it. So it's more than just like 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to try to do what I used to do 30 years ago. It's like, it's an emotional reunion between Chris and Pat and I. And there have been a few times where we've done it and invited someone to come sing and do it in front of people. So then the experience is even more, because now you're seeing the reaction that people have to us playing it, right? It must be strange for them. In some ways, it feels natural to me, but ultimately you're just thinking about the person that isn't there. It makes you think of Kurt, and it makes you think of the time you played it with Kurt. And so it's hard to describe. But then, having done it a few times with Joan Jett or with St. Vincent or with a couple different people, we were asked to play at this fundraiser in Los Angeles. And we thought, okay, well, I called Chris. I'm like, hey, do you want to do a couple Nirvana songs? He's like, sure, okay. I talked to Pat. Pat's like, anytime. Pat's like, anytime you want, I will do it. I'm in. Let's go. And so we were looking for people to sing the songs with us. And Annie Clark, St. Vincent, I asked her. She was like, of course, let's do it. Beck, I said to Beck, like, do you want to do this? He's like, absolutely, let's do it. And I think we tried to contact Joan Jett, but for whatever reason, she couldn't do it. And then I thought, well, maybe I'll ask Violet. My daughter's an amazing singer, and she is the age where she's starting to discover Nirvana. It's not something we talk about all the time. And it's not something that I like hand her the album. Listen to this. This is your dad. Like, I don't do that. But she's sort of, she's discovering it just as most 14 or 13-year-olds do. So I said, hey, do you want to play a Nirvana song? And she said, yeah. I said, it's for this benefit. She goes, sure. And I said, okay, pick one. What do you want to play? And she said, Heart-Shaped Box. And I was like, God, could you have picked a darker fucking song? Like, really, that's the one? I mean, it couldn't be, something like fun and jangly. And so, but that, and of course, that experience was different than all of the other times we performed those songs, because it was my daughter. And so I was now sharing something with her, a huge part of my life. I was sharing with her without words. She got to experience that feeling that I had every night 30 years ago. And I couldn't have described it to her with words, but in that moment, she understood. And so it was beautiful. It was very cool.
Yeah, it's a great gift. And also to have a teenage daughter who isn't ashamed of you, for God's sakes, right? I mean, really.
I'm sure Bob Dylan. I'm sure there's some things, she still has a whole lot of like, oh, Dad, come on, when she talks, she'll say like, nice dad joke. I'm like, it's still a fucking joke.
I want to ask you about, you had this massive tour plan, 25th year anniversary, but I want to ask you a very pinpoint thing. It's a two-part question. One is, two-part question, that makes you nervous, right?
Hit me, dude. I'm used to it. Just bring it on.
The first part is, I'd like you to tell me in as much detail about the last time you either played a show or went to a show before this awful pandemic occurred, and what you remember about that.
I think the last time we performed was at a Prince tribute, and which was on television, and we were asked to come play. We picked the song "Pop Life," which is one of my favorite Prince songs. I love that song so much. Of course, it's hard to pick, but "Pop Life," for whatever reason, I adore that song. And we got there, and we I think we were doing it with Sheila E. And so at rehearsals, at sound check, we did that. And then maybe Ken Ehrlich was producing. Someone was like, play Darling Nikki, which we had done before. We had recorded years ago, just like in Taylor's basement as a B-side. And I'm like, dude, y'all don't want Darling Nikki. I mean, the way we do it, it's like scratch acid. The way we do it is like, it's not Prince style.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you don't want Darling Nikki. It was like, do Darling Nikki. We're like, all right, we want to do that. They're like, we haven't done it in ages. And we clicked into it. We started the song and we kicked its ass. And the audience was like, yeah, do Darling Nikki. It was sound check. And I'm like, fuck it. Okay, let's do Darling Nikki. Like Morrissey and Time was there. Sheila E. was there. It was like, I mean, we were in Prince's world. So we came out and played Darling Nikki. And dude, I remember walking off stage and the people from Morris Day's band was like, man, why'd you have to fucking do that? It was great. I think that was the last time.
Was there any talk of this, lockdown or like we're going to be in trouble here or no?
What do you mean? Like,
was this far enough ahead of time that you didn't have to worry about, hey, people are getting sick and are we going to wear masks? Or we had to worry about that at that point?
We did not have to worry about it at that point. I mean, I remember, actually, it's funny. It's funny because the first indication that things were getting real was at a rehearsal for a school fundraiser, right? Okay, so my kid used to go to this school where there were a lot of musicians as parents, like Wendy Melvoin from Prince's band, like was a parent at the school. Greg Kirsten, world-renowned producer, kids at the
Your
school.
producer.
My producer. Beck, kid at the school. I mean, like, this one school just had so many musicians in it. And there was a school fundraiser. So Greg threw together the school fundraiser band, right? Which was like the best fucking band I've ever been in my entire life. So we decided to do a Prince set. And it was Wendy and Lisa and Kirsten and Beck. And I played drums. And it was pretty amazing. But I remember at one of those rehearsals, things started getting a little spooky at that point. And it was Wendy that said, this is bad. Like, this is serious. And I'm like, what do you mean? I thought she was being alarmist. She was like, it was actually Wendy's sister, they're twins. And so I'm like, really? She's like, go get the masks. You've got to get masks. N95s. Go get them. She's like, I had to drive all the way out to Pomona to find masks. I'm like, God, really? Are we there yet? And I remember on the way home stopping at an Ace hardware store, like, well, maybe I'll buy some masks. Sold out. I'm like, oh no. Then I go to like Home Depot, sold out. This is probably like late February, maybe mid to late February. And already then things started ramping up. And that's when I thought, like, oh my God, is this really happening right now? That's what tipped me off. And then after that, we slowly just started, turning the lights off. Just, from the album to different projects, made a video. Well, we were making the video for the song Shame, Shame. That was right as things were starting to get serious. And within a week, I knew, like, okay, everybody needs to go home. Everybody needs to chill out, get out of here,
Is there a way of explaining what it is like as an artist to have things shut down in such a dramatic and fast way, and to have you've done a lot, obviously, but you must be feeling that toll. I mean, I'm not asking this in a great way because it's such a basic question.
No, I know what you mean. Well, so I'm a hopeful person. I consider myself an optimist. So even in the most difficult situations, I try to find that corner where I'm like, well, at least there's this. And the way I looked at the last year creatively was that it was nice to be taken out of your lane, right? A lot of artists, a lot of musicians, they do their thing, they have the way that they do it, and that's just what they do. But when that process is taken away, the routine is taken away, it makes you kind of exercise different areas in your creative brain, right? And so it was kind of cool in a way to, like, okay, really, I'm stuck inside, nobody's watching, I'm going to do some fucked up shit, you know? And so you start like communicating with other people, like, God, I'm losing my mind. I need to like create, I need to do something. And you're getting emails and texts like, let's start a side project. Let's get weird. So in that respect, I think that it's been good for a lot of creative types or artists, because you're just taken out of that, you know, you're taken out of the lane that you've been in for so long. And I'm hoping that that later this year, you'll start to see the rewards of that. Like you'll start to say like, oh my God, did you hear that new blah, blah, blah song? What was that? I'll tell you what that was. That person sitting in their studio with slippers and no pants, making a song that they'd always wanted to make, but they're afraid to do. But now that no one's watching, they did it. So that's kind of what I think is going to happen.
Well, I'm hoping for the you and Jack Black are going to work together again. I'm hoping for the Neil Diamond, Dave Grohl record, the Aerosmith, Dave Grohl record. I just want you to make a million records with other people. Wait, you're writing. We forgot about this, but at a certain point, you were writing these wonderful personal essays, and then it seems like you've stopped that a little bit. But I think the natural question is, are you working toward a book? And or have you changed your view on that?
Well, when I first started writing those things, really the intention was like, first of all, I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? I don't want to write a record. I just finished that. Like, what do I can only make so many lasagnas. Like, what am I going to, what's going on? So, so I started writing these stories. Both my parents were writers. My father was a journalist, a speechwriter. My mother was an English teacher, creative writing teacher. And, so like I can do it. So I thought, well, why not just like, I'll dive into that for a little while. And once I started writing them, I would see the response to them. And I thought, oh, good, I'm bringing like happiness or joy or relief, or for 9 minutes, you know, in 3,000 word short story, someone's going to go in an otherwise really shitty day. So I thought, okay, cool. Like this is, I'll do this for a little while. I listed like 40 or 50 of the most bananas stories that, you know, first of all, I never shut up. And so, and I love just sort of like telling people stories. Anyone within earshot, guess what happened the one time I jammed with, you know, Huey Lewis or whatever. And so, which happened. So I just listed all of these things and I'm like, I'm just going to start writing. And so I've been writing a lot. And I would love for you to read it sometime. I think you'd enjoy it, you know?
Hey, Dave, you mean me personally?
Yeah, I'll just send you everything I got. Yeah. I mean, you're a writer.
I'll send you my email. I want to read all this because I've got to tell you, honestly, you're a joyous figure. You clearly, it's funny. Sometimes I read people criticize you online and they say, he's too nice of a guy. Like, what's that all about? You read that, right? I'm like, yeah. What is wrong with actually being a nice person who's joyous and enjoys other people and enjoys hanging out with other people and seeing other bands? And there's nothing wrong with that. But I would love to see that writing because I love the David Bowie one in particular. It showed great ability. It was like newspaperly. You teased us by telling us how he had told you to F off. And then you unwound the story. It was beautifully told. I love that story.
Well, here's the thing. First of all, I'm a high school dropout. I kind of don't know what I'm doing, but I would imagine almost like it's similar to writing a song. The structure, the composition, the arrangement of a song is imperative in that you want to engage the listener, take them from point A to point B. Maybe if you begin with the hook, then you return to the hook at the end of the song. If you want to hold out for the Bohemian Rhapsody finale, then you do that. But there is something about the structure of those two things that there are parallels, right? But mostly it's the reward of writing, where at the end, when I finish something that I've written and I read it back, I get the same reward that I would have if it were a song. And I don't know exactly what that means, but I do know, like, and you know, a lot of those stories are meant to try to explain to people, like, listen, I find this as weird as you do. Like, this is strange to me that these things happen. That I jammed with Prince at a sound check. I jammed with Bowie in the studio. I did blah, blah, blah. It's things like this. Like, I don't feel like I deserve to be here. And I don't feel like I belong whenever I'm in a room full of these, like the Mount Rushmore of rock and roll. And then and then it's like, Dave, you know, it's like, I don't really think of it like that. But, you know, going back to what you said about enjoying music and enjoying life and, like, you know, being a spaz and getting along with everybody and doing shots of whiskey with anybody at the rock and roll festival, you know, honestly, rock and roll, I think people have they have a funny idea of what rock and roll should be, because rock and roll is danger and rock and roll is mystery and rock and roll is like, you know, the edge of the cliff with your toes just dangling over the, like, you know, I've been in that band, right? I've done that. And if I had the choice to be here now doing what I'm doing, or be back in the danger and the mystery, and I would choose now, because to me, music really does, it represents life and a continuation of life, and just appreciating people and music and the connection that I have with the listener. Like, that's, to me, what it's all about. I've read all the bios, I have the biographies, like, we've all read those, and it's like the wild, wild west shit. Yeah, man, that's really fun to you know, to read about. But honestly, like, when you get thrown down into the middle of that kind of situation, first thing you want to do is, like, go listen to ABBA and dance around in sweatpants. You're like, okay.
I don't have sweatpants. You know, it's a really, really good point you raise. And I think whenever I see people ask, you know, I had Dave Davies on, and oh, when are the Kinks getting back together? You know, David Byrne, what Talking Heads. And what I always think is, people don't really think of their rock heroes as real people, and they don't realize that, you know, sometimes relationships don't work. Sometimes dynamics are complicated and hard. And sometimes you have a band of people you love to hang with, and everything's going well. So why do you want to screw that up? You know, so it's nice for us as fans to want the nostalgia, and I want to see all the original groups, but maybe it's not what they want, you know?
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, a lot of the projects that I've done outside of the Foo Fighters, like the documentary stuff, like Sound City and Sonic Highways. I just made another movie called What Drives Us, which is about musicians that tour in vans. And I mean, I interviewed AC/DC and Chili Peppers and Metallica and U2 and St. Vincent and Ben Harper. And there's all like the same parallels. Like, what makes you just give up life and jump into some stinky van with your friends with no guarantee that you'll ever actually make it? And parallel, and I mean, everyone does it for the same reason. But one of the reasons why I make those documentaries is not just so I can interview Dolly Parton, but it's so that you can, like, kind of pull back the curtain and humanize the whole experience and the process, right? Because at the end of the day, like, it's just people doing this thing. You know, it's people doing, like, really beautiful things that change the world, change your life. But ultimately, when you humanize the whole thing, people are maybe even more inspired, because they think, oh, I could do that. Wait, I know 3 chords. Wait, I have a Dodge van. Wait, I went to a garage sale and bought, like, a crappy snare drum. Like, what? That's how it begins. And so it's been, like, a great pleasure of mine and an honor to be involved in these documentary things, where I get to, like, you know, I get to, like, talk to Buddy Guy about, well, wait, so how did you start playing music? And then to hear his story, I'm just, like, flooded with inspiration. And I'm asking these questions that I don't know the answer to. And so I'm, like, going around, you know, hearing the history of music, and then giving it to people, saying, like, see, that's how it works. That's all you have to do. And that to me, like, that's fun.
We're going to let you go soon, because I know you're busy. This is where it begins. You're 13 years old. And I want to tell you, I was so excited. I went up into my attic and found, the first time we spoke, Dave Grohl, in 1999, Spin had this issue, and we spoke about Dr. Sharon.
Oh, yeah. Dr.
Okay?
Sharon Zadanoff. Yeah.
I know she talked. She put patches on my shoulder and plugged them into what looked like an old Fender amplifier. I'm thinking I might as well go lick a 9-volt battery. Pretty good stuff. Will you tell Foo Fighters obsessives fans, people who were like, boy, 25 years, we really wanted to celebrate that. We'd like to break some news here at the Washington Post. Are there reissues coming? Are there demos? Are there live shows? Are there things that may roll out soon? Just give us one.
Okay, first of all, the last thing you want me to do is spit out some concert date that we'll have to postpone again, right?
No, not. Let's not say live shows. We don't know when that'll happen. But as far as like releases or archival releases or the Wildflowers version of one of your records, is there anything we can look forward to in that way?
Let me just say this, that for every album we make, there are usually 7 or 8 ideas that we didn't use. So multiply that by 25 years and 10 albums. There's so much Foo Fighters shit that nobody has ever heard. So it's like a box set in a box set in a box set. So, and believe me, like I would never want to dump that on anyone's plate. Like that's just too much, you know? It's like all you can't eat. It's just so much music that someday, yes, I'm sure that we will be like, we'll somehow put all of that together and present it to people like, here's the stuff we didn't think was good enough. Fuck you. This is the stuff we didn't think was good enough. So who knows, someday.
Well, as a music lover, I'm just so glad that it's a treat. It's so rare today because everything is just released sort of haphazardly, but it was such a treat to know at midnight we were getting a new record from your band. You know, it makes you feel like a teenager again. Wait, I have a picture of you as a teenager. Let's put that up as I end this. There you are. Look at that.
Oh, yeah. That was
so,
the band Dame Bramage. That was my band Dame Bramage right there. That was at a rehearsal space on Route 50 in Arlington, right there. That was a great drum set. That was my first drum set. It was a
I love that. I was asked one very important question: which Marginal Man record is better, Identity or Double Image? That came from Ben Merlis. He wanted to know.
I mean, I would have to go with Identity. I'm just saying Identity. I mean, you know the greatest thing about Marginal Man that nobody really ever caught on to was that Kenny Inouye's father was Senator Inouye from Hawaii.
Yes, I learned that because I did some investigative work, but normal people wouldn't know that, and that is fascinating.
It's so DC. Well, okay, one more last thing. Talking about like being a teenager playing music. When I was a kid, 9th grade, I was in a band. We didn't even have a name. We submitted the form. We just said nameless. And so at the Battle of the Bands, we got to play a couple songs. I think we may have done like whatever. We opened up our set with Footloose, the theme song from Footloose. That was the first thing, right? So clearly we weren't going home with the.
Was it in an ironic punk rock way, or like we want to sound like Kenny Loggins way?
No, I was the only punk rock kid at Thomas Jefferson High School. Just me. That was it. So in order to play music, I kind of had to like roll over and like play the theme of Footloose. Anyway, but the band that won was, I don't remember what they're called. The lead singer his name was Chet Lott, Senator Lott's son, right? Trent Lott, right? Senator Trent Lott. And the guitar player in that band was a guy named Bill Bro, right? Senator Bro from Louisiana. Senator, right. So you had 2 senators' sons in one band. Guess who won the Battle of the Bands?
Who?
The band with all the senators' sons.
You know, but I bet
and the fix was in. Like, everyone's crying about Dominion voting right now. Let's go back to my 9th grade.
Don't mention that company. Don't mention that. We do not want to get sued like Fox, okay? But look, here's the thing. I I bet they were going back to their home, and their senator fathers were like the guy in Footloose. He was probably like, put that damn electric guitar away and read. What would you read? I don't know, but read something.
Just read something.
Dave, I'll show you. Can I show you one little artifact and then we'll go on?
Yes.
So, I love, we're about the same age. I'm a little bit older, but when I was a kid, I had this guitar, Supro, and
Cool.
I was in the band The Unknowns, and you can still see I ruined this guitar. I didn't. It actually plays really well, and I put The Unknowns scratched down the screwdriver.
I like that. It's your
That's
signature model.
Hey,
That's
before we go, look, it's been a pleasure. What a treat to have you do this and to have a new record. And so I'm going to show my daughter, who should be in college right now. She made this sign. Can you pose or something for a second? Because I'm going to freeze it on this.
Okay, ready?
All right. Yeah, do so. Wait, let me take the comments off. Wait, sorry. Let's turn off the comments. This is, as you can tell, very professional. All right, go.